A trinomial is simply an expression with 3 terms. Now, sometimes you can easily factor, but let's say you have something like this. And you want to factor x squared plus 5x plus 6. There is something in common here, right? But you've accounted for that term already. You're just left with 6, right? If you try to group these two, nothing in common there, you're left with x squared. So you're kind of going back and forth because you can't come up with a common factor. So the only way to come up with a common factor is to split the number in the middle. So if I split that 5 into 2 numbers, then I can introduce a particular term and use that term to factor with me. So I'm just going to tell you how to come up with that term. So 5 is the term that I'm wanting to split. Good. So you first find the product of that coefficient and that number. So that coefficient. So what is 1 times 6? 6. So that is the product of the first and the last coefficient. So you have to split 6. In other words, you have to find factors of 6, which is simply the product of that number and that number, so that when you add the factors, you end up getting 5. First thing. Come up with 2 factors for 6. So that when you add, you need to get 5. I'm going to be silly, and I'm going to start with 6 times 1. 6 is a factor, 1 is a factor, correct? 2 factors. If I add, what do I get? 7. Does 7 equal 5? No. No. Well, could there be other factors? I just wonder. Just factors of 6. 3 and 2. So if I wrote it as 3 times 2, 3 times 2 is 6. If I add 3 and 2, do I get 5? Yes. So x squared, I'm going to split the 5 and write it as 3 plus 2 x plus 6. Good. So I'm introducing a new term so that I can factor easily, because that is just useless by itself. X squared plus 3 times x, 3x, plus 2 times x, 2x, plus 6. Yes? This is similar to the problems that we just did earlier. What do we have in common between the first 2 terms? X. If I take x out of x squared, I will have x. If I take x out of 3x, what will I leave behind? Plus, what is common between the last 2 terms? 2. If I take a 2 out of 2x, I will have x. If I take 2 out of 6, I will get. What is in common between this term and that term? X plus 3. So if x plus 3 comes out of the first term, I'll leave x behind. x plus 3 comes out of the second term and leave 2 behind. So we have x plus 3 times x plus 2. You can always verify your answer by doing what? Distribution, right? We've done that before. Section something. Are we clear? Yes.
How did you do it? Because I don't know if I heard properly. For the second 3 on the right, you said you take away. I heard take away 2 from 6.
2, 6. I take a 2 from the 6. I'll have 3.
Okay.
Are we clear? We have x squared plus 8x plus 7. Always, we first have to find the product between the first and the last coefficient. So 1 times 7 is 7. Is 7 a prime number? No. You're the first one to respond, I'm looking right at you. You said no. 7 a prime number? Do we know what a prime number is? What is a prime number? It's only divisible by 1 and it's up, right? So 7 is prime. So that is the only way to factor the number 7. If it is a prime number, that's all you could do. Nothing can be done. So I better get 8 when I add those two. If I don't, I'm out of luck. Does that make sense? You cannot factor. The equation is prime. So sure, I can't add 7 and 1 to get 8. So x squared plus 7x plus x plus 7. What is in common between the first two terms? X. If I take x out of x squared, I will have x. X out of 7x, I will have 7. Yes? Plus. I just have x plus 7 left over on the side. It simply means I can throw in 1. Because 1 times x plus 7 is x plus 7. Now, what do I have in common between that term and that term? X plus 7. So if I pull x plus 7 out, in the first term, I'd leave x behind. In the second term, I would leave 1 behind. Good. So x squared minus 7x plus 10. Some would like to factor it as -5, -2. That's fine. But if negative is an issue, keep that negative out and simply come up with 2 positive numbers in here. So factors of 10, you need 2 factors. When you multiply, you get 10. When you add, you need to get 7. That is the number here. So 5 times 2 is 10. If I add 5 and 2, I will get 7. So I can split that 7 as 5 plus 2. Good. So now I would have x squared minus 5x. I'm distributing this negative in, so that negative must be applied to both 5x as well as 2x. So minus 2x plus 10. Good. What is common in the first 2 terms? X. So if I pull x out, I have x times x, x squared. X comes out of negative 5x, I will have negative 5. What should I put out of these two terms? Negative 2. If negative 2 comes out of negative 2x, I'll have x. Negative 2 comes out of positive 10, I will have negative 5. What is in common between this term and that term? X minus 5. So if I pull x minus 5 out of the first term, I will have x. X minus 5 out of the second term, I will have 2. So we have x minus 5 times x minus 2. When you distribute, you should get the answer x squared minus 7x plus 10. So negative 50. We have to negative 50 times 1 is still negative 50. I can come up with I should come up with 2 factors so that I get negative 50. That simply means one of the numbers has to be negative. So you may say, well, 25 times 2 or negative 2 is negative 50. Sure, but if you add 25 and negative 2, would you get 5? No. So you may say, well, 10 and negative 5. 10 and negative 5, when you multiply, you get negative 50. When you add, you get positive 5. You may say, well, I could do it as negative 10 and positive 5 also. Sure, that would give you negative 50. But negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. That doesn't match up with this. So the correct choice would be 10 and negative 5. So a squared plus 10 minus 5a minus 50. Again, with practice in a problem like this, I've seen students like Nimshit pick up right on and understand the pattern and throw the answer appropriately. If you can't do that, great. But we're doing this process because in some cases we wouldn't be able to see. This is a foolproof way of getting the answer. A squared plus 10a minus 5a minus 50. What do we have in common between the first two terms? A. If a is taken out of a squared, what will I leave behind? A. If I take a out of 10a, I will have 10. There is a minus here, minus there, 5 here, 5 there. So if I take minus 5 out from minus 5a, I'll simply have a. Minus 5 out of minus 50, I would have plus 10. Good. So the common factors are 8 plus 10, or the common factor is 8 plus 10. If you pull 8 plus 10 out, in the first term, you will have a. In the second term, you would have 5 with a negative in the middle. So the factored form is a plus 10 times a minus 5. Good.